All right. Put this up a little bit. All right. How's it going? This is Huda Black. Hey, hold on. Don't fuck up the shit. That's what I'm talking about. Come on, baby. All right. So this is Huda Black, or Huda Man 813, and as you can see by the title, I will be speaking on psychedelics, shrooms, and what exactly is consciousness, so we could better understand what the fuck is going on here in regards to that. We'll be answering questions like, where are we actually headed? Because, you know, consciousness, I think, will be better understood and with this concept that has to do with pretty much making consciousness seem like it has levels. Because humans, we're able to really understand with separation. So you have to really separate, even though consciousness isn't necessarily truly separate, but the experience of different levels is separate. And yeah, that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about here. So let's go ahead and jump right fucking to it, and let's get it. So before we get started, um, I want to go ahead and define this concept that I was just speaking on called densities. Um, and this is what I was talking about when it comes to the different levels of consciousness. Okay. Now we have to really understand this because, or really at least have this concept in our brain, whether it's true or not, at least have this concept in our brain because it will really, really put into perspective what the fuck I'm finna say in this video. So I did have some little, I wrote down that shit looks all convoluted to you guys, but whatsoever the fuck's watching. But to me, I'm good. I can read it. So real quick, I'm just go through what each density is real quick. Okay. So first of all, what are the densities? Let's go ahead and say density. We got to define these terms, so we can go ahead and get this started. Uh, well, actually, let's define consciousness before densities. So consciousness is pretty much, well, when you Google the definition, it's awareness of our perception, or it's awareness of or perception of something. When you Google it, it also says the state of being awake and just aware of one's surroundings. So what is the term that we keep seeing in this definition of consciousness? That is awareness. So we can say consciousness pretty much equates to awareness as we understand it right now. We might not, I might be wrong, but we don't know. Maybe we might understand. So unconscious is when you're unaware, you're not aware anymore. You're pretty much, so being unconscious is when you've gotten to, when you, when you're pretty much unaware. So when someone gets knocked unconscious, that literally means they're knocked into unawareness. Okay. When you're fucking knocked the fuck out, you know what the fuck happened. You're unaware, bro. You're unaware as hell like this. Then when you wake up, you're back to consciousness. You're back to awareness. You're like, oh, I just woke up. So, all right. So consciousness equates to self-awareness, or not. I'm sorry. Consciousness equates to being awake and aware of one's surroundings. And let's get to the word density. So density on its own refers to how much mass or energy is in an amount of space. The mass is information, and space is a measure of the connectedness of information. In low density form, energy is contracted, heavy and closer together, and more like matter. In high level density consciousness, energy is expanded, light, and further apart, more like energy. Okay. So density consciousness, when you put those two words together, so density alone really refers to how much mass or energy is in an amount of space. And when we go to Google, because I'm reading this on an article right now, we go to Google and type in density meaning. So it's just the degree of compactness of a substance. Okay. Okay. So in lower densities, energy is contracted, heavy and closer together, and has a low vibration, frequency, and awareness. In high level density consciousness, energy is expanded, light, and further apart, and has a high vibration, frequency, and awareness. It is important to note the levels of density consciousness have been numbered in reverse. Higher numbers of density consciousness are associated with higher vibrations and frequencies, and lower actual density, not higher density. Okay, so I'm reading this and I'm not trying to confuse, so we're going to go ahead and just skip to. So, density consciousness is a concept that identifies the density of energy, which defines the level of consciousness of a particular being. So, all densities is just the levels of consciousness, like I said before. So now we understand that. Let's go ahead and get right into it. So I wrote down on my notes the different. I just wrote down keywords for each density, so it's not going to be very long. And then we're going to get into the we're going to get into where psychedelics fall, and we're going to start talking about that shit. Okay. So 7 densities are this. The first density will include all of the elements, minerals. Okay, so and all of the little subatomic particles that make up existence. All first density has so that's like water, just first density, all the minerals, everything I just, all the little atoms that make up everything is first density consciousness. Okay, they only have awareness of being. So remember, consciousness is awareness. So they only have awareness of being, but they don't have any concept of self-reflection. They don't have no self-reflection. They just have awareness that it exists. That's it. There's no spatial awareness either. It's really just it exists. Okay, that's all it knows. Then each density has within it a. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought something. Each density has within it a, a desire to get to the next density. Okay, so the first density is about awareness of being, and it's all of the elements and minerals and this and that. It starts to after at the end of its consciousness level, it starts to get a desire of growth. It wants to start moving now. It wants to create bigger versions of itself. And that's second density, which is all of the plant and animal kingdom. So all the little subatomic particles in the first density came together and created different species. Okay, so second density is about growth, is about movement in general, it is about survival. Okay, and it's just a species identity. They're only aware of being relative to their environment and others. So that all they know you know, is how to pretty much exist as their species, and but they're only but second density consciousness, their actions are purely driven by instinct. There's no real like, I'm not gonna say there's no free will, but it's not as the level of humans. Okay, so so basically the whole purpose of second density consciousness is to experience growth and movement, and raise a desire for independence from the group. So remember, second density consciousness is the plant and animal kingdom. They only have species identity, and at the end of their evolution, they start to have a desire to have independence from their groups that they were raised in. Okay, so that brings us into the next density, which is the third density. Now, this is where humans fall. So the third density is about self-awareness, choice, free will, and humans are currently here. So that's like second density. The third density is about self-awareness, choice, free will, and humans are currently here. So so in this density, beings can make conscious choices and use logic, rationale, and critical thinking to create concepts, ideas, meaning, and beliefs. So in third density, this is where meaning comes from. This is where purpose starts to happen. This is where polarities start to happen. And this is where the illusion of separation is the most apparent. Mm. So when you look at the history of humans real quick, um, you know, the further back you go in our history, the more ruthless we were. Like humans were really fucked up way back in the day when they first started evolving, because when we first started evolving, because we were in the early stages of third density. Okay. So basically, the purpose of third density consciousness is to choose either the polarity of separate from the group or the whole, or enmeshed with and defined by the group or the whole. This conflict creates confusion and suffering until a desire starts to arise for something different, which pulls us into the fourth density. Now, these first four densities is all that really matters right now. I'm gonna go ahead and just quickly explain the next three or the next four, um, and then I'm gonna come back and go back over real quick what we need to focus on. So, so we go from being, completely dense. The purpose of third density is to choose either polarity or separate from the group. So basically, in this density, we forget we're part of the source. Like we forget. This is where we really believe that it's the world against us. Like everything is separate. This is where languages have to start happening. So we go from being a species consciousness, from barking at each other like dogs, from I don't even know how fishes talk. I'm basically saying from talking to each other like that, from understanding each other based on our species, we go into this perspective, this whole experience of being separate from the species, from where we're from, our species, and we have to create languages now because they're separate. I don't understand you, dude. I don't know what the fuck you're saying. I need to know what you're talking about. Now we have to start separating everything and start defining everything in existence now has its own name, because you know why? Because this is how, our whole reality is a reflection of our consciousness level. Everything has a name: phone, charger, water bottle, water in the bottle, glass cup, whiteboard, marker on the board, erasing. We have everything. Everything is defined in this way, so we can feel more because we're just so separate. We have to separate it, so that's where that consciousness level comes from. And at the end of third density, um, we start to get a desire to have service to self or service to others. So in fourth density, so after third density, after that whole suffering, what I'm saying, that we're currently still in there. We're currently, right now, humans are currently transitioning from the third to the fourth right now, currently. And the third density, I mean the fourth density is moving from this whole strong illusion that we're separated and we're not one and this and that. And now we're starting to understand that separation is an illusion. It's just a starting to understand, okay? And then we're acting accordingly. Um, and we have an awareness of self with the whole now. So it's like I'm me, but I know I'm actually a part of this bigger thing. But I still do have choices here. Okay, I can either serve me or serve others. Okay, and that's basically what it's pretty much third density, but just more awareness of the whole, like more awareness of the fact that this all is an illusion, and everything starts to become more clear. We become more transparent and opaque, um, you know, and more clear about what it is that we want to fucking do, okay, and where we want to be for real, okay. And there's no real, because in third density, humans tend to compartmentalize their brains and they hide shit from themselves. They don't even know what it is they're really thinking most of a lot of the time. It's like we have this many layers of thought, and beliefs that just wouldn't exist in fourth density. Okay. And fourth, God damn it. And okay, hold on. Keep fucking up. I need to get a better. I'm gonna get this right. I'm gonna get it right. I'm gonna get it right. So now we're starting to move into yeah. So basically, it's just the fourth density is just the choice. Um, um, you know. So basically, it's about really like the polarities are way more apparent now, and but they're also at the same time they're loose. It's like it's a very contradicting experience, but at the same time, it's about choice. So choice is a polarity that creates suffering and cannot be sustained because it is a polarity, and the opposite aspect is missing. So both polarities must exist in equal proportion, and so as one increases, so does the other. The purpose of fourth density consciousness is to experience one extreme of polarity and raise a desire for less polarity and more balance. So in fourth density, we're going to go to one extreme of polarity. So we're either going to be the world is going to be super service to others, or we're going to go and everybody's going to be service to self. But what it is we're going to start realizing the illusion, here, and that comes with fifth density. So once the polarities of service to self and service to others reach the extreme end of the spectrum, and humanity has had enough suffering, see, balance is returned through fifth density consciousness. In fifth density consciousness, we experience the journey to unify and learning how to be both separate, sovereign, and independent being, and part of a group and whole. So this is next level shit. We don't really have to worry about fifth density, but basically, what fifth density is it's loosening up. It's loosening up the grip of reality even more and more. And we say reality. When I say reality, I mean third density separated illusion. We're losing that grip more, and we're getting more into the balance of everything. Okay, polarities are actually starting to become more loose too. Now there's no real polarities. Everything is kind of just we're starting to see everything more as one. Okay, in fifth density. Um, so the purpose of fifth density is to really truly learn by experience that separation between self and others or the whole is an illusion, and in truth, we are all and both. Mm. So basically, fifth density is understanding that we're one and we're one. We're one person and we're one. We're one, a part of the whole one. Sixth density consciousness. Okay. So it says after um yeah, so the purpose of fifth density is to learn separation between self and others, or the whole is an illusion, and in truth, we're all in both. It raises a desire for the elimination of polarity and a unification and a unification of separate and the whole. Mm. So that's fifth density moving into sixth density. So now in sixth density consciousness, polarity separation is no longer, and they begin to start teaching the lower densities. So so basically, when you get to sixth density, you start to really remember that you are both separate and part of the whole source of consciousness. You understand what happens to one happens to the whole, and what happens to the whole happens to one. At this level of remembrance, consciousness exists to impart levels of understanding and wisdom to those in the lower levels of density consciousness to help them learn and understand. So sixth density consciousness is going back to the lower, it's going down to the lower densities and helping them learn to get to where we get to the sixth density. Okay, or at least get to their next density, but it can only help so much because we all are on our own um, um, consciousness evolutionary timeline. So, so now the purpose of sixth density is to experience without polarity and raise a desire to return to infinite oneness, which goes to seventh density. Seventh density is the one and all knowing. So now physical reality is pretty much gone, and we're in our natural energetic form of eternal consciousness. So now it's not just self-awareness, it's not just awareness of yourself being whole, but you're also separate. This is awareness of everything. So now you are everything. Okay, you're the humans on Earth. You're the fucking planets that created the humans. You're the minerals in the waters now. You're the you're the light that shines onto the planets. You're the sun. Now you're the fucking star. And this is seventh density consciousness, is awareness that I am all of this thing. Okay, and you really are. And now that you know everything, though, now you want to go back to the start of the cycle. Now you want to start forgetting. You want to go back. You start having a desire like, all right, I'm tired of knowing everything. I want to now not know something. Okay. But that's pretty much what all of this is more and more and more awareness, more and more knowing. The more that you go higher on the densities, the more you begin to be aware, and the more you become, and the more you become aware of, and the more you are. Like that's literally what it is. So, but then at the end of it all, you say, all right, I'm ready to learn again. I want to go back to not knowing. So then you start a whole new line of consciousness, and that begins in the eighth density. Now there's only seven densities, but they added this density just to explain the fact that you want to start at seventh density. It has a desire to forget again. So eighth density is the first density of the next dimension, or possibly even universe, with brand new laws, levels of awareness and consciousness, and potential experiences and opportunities for growth. What exists here is unknown. However, it could be considered the start of another phase of the ascension of consciousness, where Source has opportunity to unknow and re-know itself again in total new ways. All right. So now, with that being stated, we only need to focus on the first four with what I'm talking about here. So I'll just explain to you. You can rewind it if you need to. I will even put, maybe later, I'll put the damn website that this is just one of many that I'm reading this shit from. And yeah, so we only need to focus on these four, 1 through 4, okay? Because 4 is the next level of consciousness that humans are going into. Third density is where we are now, and the two densities prior to that are the ones that we have already learned. We've already learned those lessons, okay? So now that we've explained the densities and all of that and consciousness level, that took me 22 minutes to do it. Damn, that's crazy. Because this is a concept that you have to really understand, dog. Like, I'm really trying not to sound so alien with this shit and whatever, but whatever. Anyway, I'm trying to explain it. I've never seen nobody explain it. It's basically what I'm trying to say. So now that we have explained the densities, and you understand that first density is what? The elements, water, all the minerals, all the subatomic particles that create all of the bigger experience, all the species. Everything that's around us is created by first density consciousness. Everything that you are is created by first density consciousness. Second density consciousness is first density consciousness has just awareness of being, but no self-reflection. And then they start to get a desire to grow and move and to become a bigger species. Multicellular organisms. They're called multicellular organisms because all the first density consciousness came together and created bigger species, like the plant and animal kingdom, which is in the second density, and that is about growth, species identity, and awareness of being relative to the environment, but no real self-reflection. But they start to become more aware, or they start to become more desiring of being aware of themselves, separate from the group. They want to be more individual, and that's where their identity comes from. So their identity, self-awareness, that's where we are now. The illusion of separation begins, and we are now every man for themselves, and that's what the fuck we've been doing for the past thousands of years. We've just been living third density. Okay. Now, like I said before, every density holds within it the densities prior. So now let's speak on psychedelics and shrooms and what is it that is really doing then? Because if psychedelics or shrooms or everything that comes from um LSD is it comes from a ergot or some shit like that. It's a plant, basically what I'm trying to say. Is these things, even marijuana, these things are all in the plant and animal kingdom. But wait, the plant and animal kingdom is second density, and humans are in third density. So that means we are higher consciousness than the weed that we smoke. We're a higher consciousness than the shrooms that we take. We're the higher consciousness than the LSD that we took. We're a higher consciousness than the DMT that we took. So why is it that people for so long have been thinking that this is that when they take shrooms and this and that they're learning something new? Because remember, every density carries within it the lessons from the densities before. So with that being stated, when I take shrooms, when I smoke marijuana, when I as a third density human, when I intake LSD or psychedelic, it's not about learning something new. It's really more about remembering where the fuck you came from. Because what is ego death? Remember I said second density, it doesn't really it has awareness of being relative to this environment, but it doesn't really have an ego. It doesn't really have self-reflection, so it doesn't have an ego. And that's not self-aware. So when you take high doses of say shrooms or LSD and these things take over your brain, you're remembering that you're part of a species. You know what I'm saying? You're remembering um, where you fucking came from, the lessons that you learned. That oh my god, like I'm a part of a fucking species, and that I'm really human, and this and that. And what is it that you want to do when you take a lot of shrooms? Is that you want to go into the grass and fucking lay out on the grass. You don't give a fuck if there's bugs crawling on you. You don't care. You're more shroom-like. You don't even realize it. But what you're doing is you're making yourself more shroom-like. You want to be a fucking mushroom. It's taking over your brain. You already have the lessons in your brain from that consciousness level because humans have already passed second density, but yet we're taking substances to remember, which there's nothing wrong with that, because when you are in a higher frequency or whatever, but everybody else is on the same frequency, you don't really seem like you're in a higher frequency, but you're naturally already high, bro. Just being sober, you are high. You're higher than anything you can ever smoke on here. Okay, you're already there. What you're trying to do is get low. You're trying to lower yourself so that you can fucking remember where you came from and feel good, and you know what I'm saying, and take your human separated brain out of this shit for a second. Take a break from this separated ass perspective, this negative ass perspective, and go back to where we fucking came from, which is um growth and movement and learning, you know what I'm saying? And so all of that. So basically, when you take shrooms, you're basically what it's doing to you is you're not getting high, you're getting low. Okay. Um, and that's pretty much the concept here is that uh we look at these substances as like so profound and that they're and I'm not trying to diss them because it's good to remember. It's good to have some people when they take shrooms they be like man, that shit feels like I just had a reset on my brain, like I just reset. You know why they say reset? Because it really does feel like you just reset, like oh shit, I just reset, I just went back to what the fuck I remember. Because because my third density brain has fucked up, my whole perception of reality right now. That it's just I'm just looking at everything so negatively and this and that. And although you do have the choice to change that on your own without a substance, sometimes the help of shrooms or marijuana or psychedelics like DMT or LSD um, can do better to help you remember where you came from. And that is pretty much it, man. I don't want to make this video too fucking long. I already over explained myself, I feel like. And that's pretty much it, man. So remember, humans are going into right now the fourth density, okay? And that's where we're headed. We are stepping out of this whole super negative perspective of everything is against us and every man for himself and this and that, and that that we're separate and we're not a part of the source, we're not a part of the all of those perspectives are being thrown away, and we're starting to understand that, okay, this is an illusion. I really do have choices here, okay? I could choose to be negative or positive if I want to. And you choose more consciously now. Now you're choosing more consciously. Like now you're like, if I'm negative, nigga, it's because I chose it, bro. It ain't because somebody did something to me. It ain't because this and that. It's because I made the conscious choice, which I have the ability to do, to be negative. That's what I want to do. I want to be negative right now. Fuck it. Or I want to be positive. I want to serve y'all. I want to help y'all. You know what I'm saying? And that's yeah, so that's pretty much it, man. So um we going ahead and moving on to that. It's gonna be a whole different experience. A little slightly different experience. You can start to see some people are kind of already like on the verge of being fourth density. But let me stop talking. And I hope you understood at least what the fuck I'm talking about, bro. Like, god damn, I probably was just speaking a whole other language, and I don't know. Anyway, we out. That's it. So this is my concept of what shrooms and psychedelics is really doing to you. Since we are in third density, and all plants and animals are in a lower density consciousness than humans, you don't get high by using those substances. You're not getting higher. No, you're not getting high. No, you're getting low. You're lowering yourself down so you can understand and remember where you came from. That's all, buddy. That's all I'm gonna say. And be easy.